Welcome to Hood River County School District's Budget Committee training. My name is Mark DeMoss. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of the district. And today what we'll be talking about is what is the Budget Committee, what will be expected to do, and then try to provide a little bit of background and information on the financial structures and organization within the district so that as we approach the meeting, we can have a more effective and efficient discussion. A few ground rules for training. First off, due to Oregon budget and public meeting laws, we can't talk about the budget that's under consideration until we actually meet as a committee. So therefore, both during this training and prior to that, we won't be providing specific estimates or appropriation amounts associated with any fund or line item, revenue, or expenditure. We won't be talking about the question of whether to fund any specific programs, and we won't talk about the question of whether to impose any tax levy or the amount of those levies. One of the first things to just keep in mind as we approach almost any decision that we do at the district is the vision, mission, and core values of the district. As a management team, we've worked very diligently to put together a proposed budget for budget committee approval and for board consideration to be adopted. And we think that we've taken into consideration all the aspects of this program to the best of our ability and to the financial resources that we have available to us. First off, what is Oregon budget law? Oregon budget law is designed, and it's very unique for many states, to provide fiscal transparency and accountability for the public entities to the actual citizens which they serve. It establishes standard procedures for the preparation and presentation of budgets, and it outlines sort of standard ways in which our documents are presented, how we present revenues, how we prevent expenditures, and basically how we tell the story of what we expect to happen in our budget. It also then provides specific instructions for how we provide public comment and that we appraise and keep informed the public and the taxpayers within our district. A few common questions that people have for the budget committee. What is a budget committee? It's a district's financial planning and advisory committee. It consists of elected governing board members and an equal number of qualified district voters. All of you on that committee will have the same authority and the same voting rights. Any qualified voter of the district can serve on a budget committee, and its main function is in a series of meetings that will meet to review, discuss, and make recommendations regarding the budget that is proposed by the district. Upon completion, the committee approves a budget and then sets a tax rate based upon the amount needed to balance that budget. The role of the budget committee for a supplemental budget in the event next year, which can happen, it happened this year, we needed to do a supplemental budget and a change. The budget committee doesn't play a role in that. So that will occur with through the board. What information is available to the budget committee? The budget committee can request information during consideration of the proposed budget, and it can also request staff members to attend budget committee meetings. Can you ask questions other than at the budget committees? Yes, but checking in with the administrator or budget officer between meetings allows members to explore budget items of interest in greater detail. For example, should we meet on the first night and you need significantly more detail in order to evaluate the budget, we can schedule time to meet one-on-one and go through your specific questions. Can the budget committee determine how much an employee is paid? No. The budget committee doesn't approve single personnel, employment contracts, salary schedules, and it doesn't have to negotiate any salary contract. What is a budget? A budget is a financial plan for one fiscal year. Ours starts on July 1st and ends on June 30th. The budget it supports the strategic direction of the district, and it's based on good faith estimates of revenues and expenditures. You always have to remember that a budget is only good on the day that it's put together and the day that it's presented, and after that it's subject to changes and conditions. During the presentation of the budget, we will have lists of assumptions that we have made, and we will have those assumptions will cover both revenues and expenditures. Therefore, the public budget is tied to the lawful appropriations which give us the authority as a district to spend public money. The budget process is divided up into a few phases. The proposed budget, which is what we're putting together now and we'll present next week. The approved budget, which is what comes out of the budget committee. And then the adopted budget, which is what goes to the full board and then gets adopted by the district for the following year. During the course of the year in which the budget is, there can be changes after adoption, which maybe occur through resolutions or supplemental budgets, depending upon the particular conditions. The first phase is the proposed budget. We've already presented a budget calendar. We've presented budget goals and priorities. And if you've been or watched any of the board meetings or financial advisory committee meetings, you've seen those presentations. We then prepare a proposed budget by fund, and the revenues and expenditures have to be balanced for each of those funds. And then we have to make known, based upon the best known information, that good faith estimate. We then publish some notices, have our budget committee meetings, and then the budget committee approves the proposed budget. The budget, in a nutshell, is a financial management tool. It's created over a series of months through the collaboration of many. Once again, if you've been involved with the district and you've seen board meetings and you've seen several of our presentations, our town halls on the budget, it involves the collaboration, involves the perspectives of many people. And it created as a snapshot in time with the assumptions that we will present. It's based on the availability of revenues, and the expenditures are then aligned with the district strategic plan. All of the appropriations and expenditures have to conform with Oregon budget law. In terms of revenues, we have a whole series of different types of revenues, and we'll walk you through how the revenue is built up during our budget committee meeting, but you're going to see these specific things and revenue sources within our presentation. Most of these, the ones that are an asterisk, are all part of the state school fund grant formula. We'll talk about that when we present our budget, and it comprises the majority of our general fund budget. In terms of financial structure and codes, you'll hear terms like fund, function, and object or account codes. Funds are basically used to organize the district resources into what they refer to as self-balancing accounts. What that means is I can't take money from one fund and just drop it in another fund without offsetting those corresponding entries into each set of books. The revenues and expenditures of that fund need to balance out. We have basically four main types of funds. We have a general fund, which includes most of the operation instruction, transportation, business services, things like that you see. We also have special revenue funds, which are made up primarily of grants, but also could include like our nutrition, our student body accounts, our bus replacement fund, things like that. We then have debt service funds, which are tied to our debt obligations and payments, and our capital projects fund, which is used to manage the expenditures related to large capital projects. In terms of the functions, these codes are used to describe the elementary activity for which the service or material is required. For example, 1111 is elementary instruction, 2552 is transportation, and I'm going to walk you through a budget in a little bit from this year so that you can see how this is laid out. Then you'll see terms like object and account codes, in which we try to draw together all salaries, associated payroll costs, purchase services, etc. And all of these are then grouped into coding areas so that they can be summarized. All of these, it is described in the Public Budgeting and Accounting Manual, which is available online from the state, and all school districts have to follow the same requirements of that in order for the collection and presentation of their financials. If we look at an example from a fiscal year 24-25 budget, I'm going to show you what kind of document you can expect to see. Oops. One moment. I can pull it up. The budget is downloadable. If you go to the district site and you look under departments for business services, you'll see the prior year budget. And we'll also present paper copies if you need a paper copy, but for most part, people today are enjoying having electronic versions. The adopted budget for 24-25, you'll see a cover sheet, and then you'll see the table of contents. It's divided up, and these are fairly standardized sections. You'll see some variation in whatever it is we present for the current proposed year. And that'll include the budget calendar, which are the key dates, the committee members. Then what you'll see is a budget message. And as we basically walk through these sections, you'll see that there's the budget committee members. You'll see an org chart, which just describes who the administration is in terms of the district. And then what will happen is the Oregon budget law is very clear that we present a budget message, which is basically an explanation of how the district approached its budget, challenges we face, opportunities, things like that. And it's a message, and it gives the superintendent an opportunity to really talk about what goes into the thinking and decision making around the budget. And those will vary year by year. Then as you go through, there'll be a set of budget assumptions. Once again, the structure and format will be very similar, but it may change from year to year based upon exactly what's going on and what dynamics there are. But this provides some background on health insurance, pensions, contingencies, things like that. And so it makes sense to review the prior year budget if you don't have any experience reading it, and you can run through these sections because a lot of this information is the same from year to year. We then talk about things like the local option levy. What is it? How is it calculated? What's some of the historical information? And then there will be a section in about budget information at a glance. We won't go through this all in detail, but this does give you some good background on the budget process. We've covered a lot of this in our meeting, but it just gives you some good background. If a general reader picks up the budget and doesn't know about anything, they can use this and it'll give them a little bit of a roadmap to talk about. Then as we go through, you'll see that there'll be four main sections. The budget will be divided up into the general fund, the special revenue fund, the debt service fund, and within this, what we will then present are each of the functional areas. Remember, we talked about that before in terms of describes the type of activity involved. That each of them will be given a section, and we'll list out all of the accounts for that and what we expect to see. We'll then go through and do the same thing for the special revenue funds, the debt service, capital construction, and we'll provide some supplemental information. If you're looking at one of these pages and this format is established by the state of Oregon, we get a little bit of chance to vary it and do some things, but for the most part, this is the format that you'll see from almost any public entity. It will include 2 years of prior actuals. It will then include for the year prior, it will include the year prior adopted budget. Remember, since the year is not done, they're not going to ask for actuals on that year. And it will also then ask for information on the full-time employee count related to that. It will then show what ultimately will become 3 columns for proposed, approved, and adopted through each step, because remember, there can be changes to the budget. Doesn't always. Many budgets never have a change through those steps. And it will also include a column of the adopted full-time employees so that you can see the head count related to the current projected budget versus the proposed budget. During our meeting, you'll see the proposed budget column, but you won't see information on approved and adopted because it hasn't been approved nor has it been adopted by the board at this time. It'll then be divided up into basically revenues and expenditures. If you go through these reports, there'll be summaries on top, which will describe, like there, we have a resource report, which is basically all of the incoming revenues, and the requirements report, which make up all the expenditures and where we expect that ending fund balance to end up. These have to agree in order to be in balance. The revenue buildup will be a summary of all the accounts that we use to track revenue and the amounts that we expect to see, and you can kind of compare those and trend those from prior years that are provided in order to do some comparison. It will then also be divided up for expenditures, and we'll provide a couple different ways for you to see it. And so if this first set is broken down, and you'll see that it's expenditures by function. So we've taken everything related to elementary, K-5 education, and we've summed those up into one line. This is a little bit different than what you'll see here, which is the general fund by object. And so we'll skip that functional step, and we'll provide the information so that you can see, hey, what's the difference in total spending for licensed salaries or classified salaries over time, or what is the district spending on travel from year to year, and so we do comparison based on that. Lastly, we'll go through, and there'll be a set of pages that are devoted to each area, each functional area, and you'll be able to break out, and you'll see very specific detail about all of these areas and what's expected for each one. There should be some information giving you some description of what this information area is. And it is a fairly sizable document. This one for this year is 181 pages long in total. And so as you proceed through the document, you'll see all this detailed information. It's not essential. Once again, it's just like those questions about what does the budget committee do and don't do. It's not really the budget committee's job to get into specific line item details, but it should ask questions, but it's not its job to have to go figure out, what individuals are being paid or things like that. The budget committee's job is to really represent the taxpayers in terms of whether we've presented a budget that's in accordance with the principles of the organization, and then to be able to comment and approve in terms of the tax levies that we're raising and therefore how we're spending that money. If we go back to our presentation, and during the presentation on the budget committee, it's okay. This, like I said, this is a fairly detailed document, and it can be imposing, and it's okay. Over time, what we'll do in terms of our meetings is we'll provide a presentation, and I will point out things that I think are important to take note of, and then you'll be given an opportunity to ask questions, obviously, and become familiar with whatever you need. It's our goal in this process to be as transparent as possible. But we have to do it within the limits of what the state of Oregon requires us in terms of how budget is presented, which is what this does. If we return to our presentation, we can talk about what's going to happen. The budget committee's duties, talked a little bit about this before, is to receive the budget document, to receive the superintendent's budget message, to talk about the proposed budget, ask questions, and then at the end you'll be asked to approve the budget and recommend adoption to the board, and then also approve the proposed property taxes. The budget committee process is designed to allow meetings that are open to the public. It becomes a public document once it's released to the committee, and then we'll have a vote, and then we'll proceed from there. At the first meeting, if you've never been to a budget committee meeting or you're new, we'll elect budget committee officers. Those officers have specific jobs, and we'll provide some background and information, a little bit of a script, so that the people that end up as these budget committee officers essentially have documents that help guide them, and they can ask questions, obviously. In order, at the end, we'll have a resolution that will need to be approved. In terms of a majority of the committee have to approve the motion. I shouldn't say a resolution, it's a motion to approve the budget, and then it's either as presented or as amended. And once it's approved, the budget committee's work is complete until the next budget cycle starts. After that, the adopted budget is given to the board, the governing board. They hold board meeting, they consider it, they deliberate, and then they have to approve the expenditures, and then it's adopted. In terms of our strategic plan, we have strategic goals listed, and I just returned to this type of information because it's important to understand how we approach our problems. We've already previously presented a budget calendar for this year. It was originally going to be based on several revenue scenarios, And then we've taken that and assumed a $4 million reduction. That's part of the public record in terms of our presentations. We'll finalize during our committee meetings, and then the board will approve it at the June 11th meeting. We've talked before, and I just mentioned this about in terms of our budget presentations, where our goal as a district is the budget for long-term sustainability. And so this is really sort of wrapped into all of the documents and things that you're going to see going forward. I won't talk about it for this year, except to say, if you look at additional information, you can see our prior board meeting updates, especially January, March, through that time period. And we also talk about PERS rate changes in the October Finance Advisory Committee meeting in detail, because that's been a big driver of this of issues that are going on right now in terms of costs. With that in mind, I just want to extend a big thank you to everybody. Hope I haven't taken too much of your time. I appreciate you watching this message. Like I said, feel free to reach out if you have questions about the process. Once we release the budget, feel free to reach out with questions you may have, and we'll have hopefully a very constructive dialogue and get good feedback from our community and from our governing board. Once again, thank you for your time and effort to this, and we'll see you in a week.